Hi, I'm Justin. I'm an alcoholic. I've been through the process, the help of a Big Book Step Study sponsor. Meetings like this, people like you, a higher power that I found through this work. And I practice the steps every day, to the best of my willingness, as they say. So step 2, right, is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. For me, I don't know about restore to sanity, because I don't know if I was ever truly sane, right? I mean, I feel like when I was born, I kind of feel like I argued with everybody my whole life. Like from the minute I was born, the earliest memories I have, that's in my baby book, my favorite thing to do was to fight with my uncle. I was like 18 months old or something like that. And it's like, my father likes to say that he knew I was special. He said, "I knew you were special, Justin, when I saw you throw your first Christmas present." And it was like, that's exactly how it was, like just fought with everybody and everything all the time. And when growing up, I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I didn't really understand that too much at the time. My father was around a lot. My mom worked nights. My dad was around, and he was around, and he drank, but it was never anything that bad with us. But he always argued with my mother all the time, mostly about financial things. I think because he was spending money on drinking and stuff that he, things he shouldn't have been spending money on and whatnot. So there was always like conflict in the home, which I was already kind of wired for anyway. Like, I mean, I don't know how someone would teach an 18-month-old baby how to argue with their uncle, but it was like I was argumentative by nature and born into a place where there was a lot of arguing, right? So you could say like most of my life, that's kind of been the theme, and it continued through sports, and I always had problems. Like I played a lot of sports as a kid, and I was always fighting with a coach, and it was always the coach's fault. It was always the teacher's fault. It was always somebody else's fault why they were fighting with Justin. Justin was never the problem. In my mind, I was never the problem. And when I got to about, I'd say around 14, I kind of just lost interest in everything I was kind of doing, anything with sports, and I started hanging around with some other kids who had like basically no supervision at all, and drugs and alcohol were very much available. So that became my thing, and when I found drinking, it was no question, this was the best thing I had ever found. It was something that turned off that argumentative part of me for a little while anyway, and of course, the first time I did it, I drank too much, I got sick, and the next day I would have done it again if it was available. It just wasn't available when I was 15, but there was no question, absolutely no question in my mind. Day 2, I would have done it again. Day 3, I would have done it again, basically for the rest of my life, There was no question that was what I wanted to do, as much as I could, for as long as I could. And I didn't choose to see, or really see, maybe, I don't know if choose is the right word, but see any downside of it, like it was, there were no immediate repercussions to it. It just seemed like that's what my friends were doing, and I hung out with people that were just like me. They didn't really drink even to the level I did. It was always, I had another gear, it seemed like, which you could always find somebody like that though, you could always find somebody who drank like I did, but it wasn't the immediate group of friends I had. Anyway, by the time I was a late teenager, I had decided that I wasn't going to go to college. I was going to go in the military. And while I was waiting to go into the military, I graduated in June or something like that, May, June, and I had to wait until the following February to get into this program in the Air Force. And so I had 9 months to kill without getting in trouble, and there was no way. So I got arrested and got a DUI, and that was the beginning of what I thought was going to be a lot more trouble. I was kind of geared up for the fact that this is going to be how it is. And then when I got in the military, that all kind of stopped, and I found a way to drink that I was able to avoid trouble by kind of staying home. Like, I didn't go out, I didn't drink and drive, but I always hung out with people who drank like me, and we'd, rent a house, and it would just be like an animal house, and we wouldn't really go anywhere. We'd have people come over, and I didn't get in trouble. I actually I had a really good time in the military. I was well liked. I had a great performance record, but I drank like a Viking, just nonstop, drank nonstop. And most of the people that I hung out with, and even the people that I worked for, were the same exact way. So if you came into work hungover, they'd be like, all right, just go home. Go home, sleep it off, and literally no harm, no foul. As long as you worked hard, and did the stuff that you were supposed to do, generally speaking, there were no consequences for that. And like I said, I never really paid any legal consequences with the police or anything. That was my only brush with the law, was that when I was 18. So during that time, I met my wife. We've been together like 22 years. We're still together. That poor woman, When I first met her, she came over to my house, and when she walked in the door, I had my personal funnel with like 4 Budweisers in it, and she came in and saw me chugging 4 Budweisers at once. One wasn't enough, right? And she stayed. I have no idea why, but I know for sure I wouldn't be alive without her. There's no question, And again, this was something that, I didn't know it at the time, but she had grown up in a situation that was like that too. So she had maybe not seen her father doing that, but she'd certainly seen him drinking, So she was kind of wired, it turns out, to not be completely shocked by what I was doing, even if she didn't know that at the time. So the same pattern basically continued until I got to some points, as they talk about here, where they're talking about how at some point you cross a line, some invisible line where you used to have some control in things. Like I could take a couple days off in a week, or I could, if I got some blood work done or something like that, you could, the doctor would say, okay, your liver enzymes are high, you got to shut it down. I could shut it down for a few months, or even up to a year. I quit for a year when I was in my 20s to kind of prove it to my wife that I could. And then that's when we got married, was when I quit. Within 3 weeks of me quitting, she's like, we're getting married, and we went up to like Niagara Falls and got married. But, and I lasted for like a year, and I was like, okay, that proves it without any doubt that I'm not an alcoholic, because you shouldn't be able to quit for a year if you're an alcoholic, right? So off we go again, and then every couple of years there'd be jackpots, as they call it in AA, right? There'd be some little thing, never anything like lose a job or anything. It would be like something just stupid, like say something stupid on Thanksgiving, I'd get kicked out, and I'd stay in a hotel for a couple of days, and then I'd come back, and drinking would calm down again, then you say, okay, well, I'm gonna, like it says in another section of this, like, I'm only gonna drink beers. I'm not gonna, no hard liquor. It was the tequila that did that. It was the Jameson. My favorite was Jameson. It was the Jameson. And you could kind of bring yourself back to, keeping the flame. My father called it keeping the flame low, like not letting it get too out of control, like keep that burner low, and, because that's kind of how he drank. He always just subtly drank beers. He wouldn't do the 4 funnel, the 4 beer funnel thing like that, like I would. And that basically continued until I was 40, and the times I was getting kicked out became more frequent, and and I stayed out longer each time, The last one was like 4 months. I was at my parents' house. I blew up something on Christmas, got in a big fight. My wife's like, you're out, so I was out for like 4 months. And I came back home, and that's when I went to like a spin dry at this place in Westboro, like a 3-day little spin dry thing. I went in there, and I was around people. I had never been around any other kind of substances, like people, with heroin, anything like that, right? So of course I go there, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely not, and I'm in the wrong place, I couldn't see at the time that I was exactly in the right place. It took for me to get to when I was 40, my wife actually left the house for the first time. That was Every time I got kicked out, this time she was like, and it wasn't even over anything crazy. She had just had it. And I had it. At that point, I was just basically not bedridden. I work from home, and that's kind of what made all this possible too. Like if I had to like get up and go anywhere in the morning, there's no way I would have been able to do that. So I was able to work from home. I was able to drink the way I wanted to, do basically whatever I wanted. As they say, that's plenty of rope to hang yourself in most cases, especially when it came to the drinking, So at that point, when she left, I was like, okay, I got to do something. I actually called the Washburn, and I went to Washburn House. And then I went to there. They had told me a few things. Like there was this guy there. I don't remember his name. And he sat down with me and he said, like, what are you doing here? And I said, I can't do this anymore. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I can't keep doing this. I can't live like this, And he's like, well, how much trouble are you in? He starts asking. He's like, he goes, so you have a job, you have a wife, you have a house, you have all these things. He's like, you don't have to lose them, You don't have to lose them. You can stop right now. If you wanted to, this could be literally the end of this. But your way of doing things is over. And you have to accept that this, your way, Justin's way, has to be gone forever. And if you do that, you'd probably be okay. And I said, okay. He said, so there's the back door is right there. You can literally walk out the back door, And he said too, he's like, you're going to lose all those things. You guarantee, because everybody in here loses those things. You're going to lose them. You're going to lose your wife. You're already, if you haven't already, So I went to a follow-on treatment thing, a 30-day program, a 28-day program. And they talked about AA and coming here and basically finding a sponsor right away and doing all those things. And I got out of that place, that 28-day program, on a Friday night, and I came in here on a Saturday morning, which was in April of 2018, and I've been coming here ever since. So that's kind of how I got here. But when we're talking about step 2, the part that I thought I was going to really struggle with, like most of us, the reason this chapter is in this book is I didn't believe in God of any kind. And if you talk to me about it, my mom is really religious, church 6 days a week at a minimum religious, right? Which always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And she was always convinced that was going to save me. If she could get me to do that, that would stop the drinking, that would fix everything, right? So this thing about a power greater than ourselves was the part that I thought, how am I ever going to do that? How am I ever going to put faith in everything else, right? And then it was by coming here and listening to you guys and hearing things like when they talk about your own conception of God. Therefore, when we speak to you, God, we mean our own conception of God. And God, to me, but still to this day, I really don't know. I know that there's something there, but I don't know what it is, But I do know that it worked for all of you, And in the beginning, that's really all I needed to know, was that this absolutely, I believed that you guys believed in it. I believed that what you were telling me was the truth, And it was the truth. It was, absolutely, without question, was the truth. I have no idea why I was able to hear that, but I was, and I'm so grateful for it. And when they talk about being willing to believe and being beaten into a state of reasonableness, and I was that, I was so sure that the worst thing that could happen to me was stay in the way I was, anything other than that. It was hell, man. It was really hell, true hell. And I came in here and people were smiling and joking and drinking coffee and eating Little Debbie's cakes and stuff. And I was like, what's going on with these guys, This is incredible, right? And you could joke about yourselves and you could, and we had these sometimes horrible stories about things we've done or things that have happened to us. But we could reflect on those things and kind of disposition them in some way, which was the steps, right? Being able to work through those steps. It couldn't make those things that happen not happen, and things you said be unsaid, but it gave you at least some kind of an understanding of your place in it. And that's what I needed, was to understand, what was my part in those things that happened. I know that's not the step we're talking about today, but it's also, when I talk now about having a spiritual existence, that this is contingent on me doing the things that you guys have taught me. And one of the things it talks about a lot in here, on page 48, it says, we often found ourselves handicapped by obstinacy and sensitiveness. And this is me, man. And that's the part when my therapist said that I was sensitive, I was so offended. I was like, no, I'm not. What are you talking about? You know, like, I couldn't believe it. It was the worst thing she'd ever said to me. And I still couldn't understand it. And it was like, that was a hard thing for me to accept, the fact that I was sensitive. But when I saw what that really meant, which was my behavior when somebody cuts me off, you know? Or one story I tell a lot to my friends is that I was in a McDonald's one time, and I didn't want to be at this I hate McDonald's. And I was taking my daughter there. And anytime I'm doing something I don't want to do, I'm even in more danger, right? So, danger of being me, that is. And I walked in and I'm like, can I get some salt packets? And the lady told me she was out of salt. I'm like, this is McDonald's. Everything in here has salt in it. The napkins have salt in them. You know what I mean? Like, whatever it is, everything has salt. But I never, ever considered, you know, and I was like, that's how sensitive I am. Like, that threw me for a loop. I didn't even know what to say. And thankfully I said nothing, right? I just was like, I did say that. I said everything in McDonald's has salt in it, or something like that, you know, joking. But I never thought about, like, what this woman's day was like. The fact that she was going to sit there all day long, making what she makes, and have to tell morons like me that she doesn't have salt all day long. Can you imagine a longer day, you know? And that thing to me is like, there's times where, you know, doing this stuff, I truly believe that it's the only thing that's going to keep me from saying stupid stuff to a woman like that, or to take that stuff home with me, is a power greater than me, you know? That's the only chance I got. I'm still the guy who throws bats at his coach, you know, in Little League. I'm still the guy who when I'm not paying attention, or when I'm not doing the things I'm supposed to be doing, like asking for God for help or talking to you guys, I go back to those behaviors, like almost instantly. Like, it's so quick, it's not even funny. It's definitely daily. It doesn't take months to go back to that, you know? For me anyway. I'm going to go back to those behaviors, and that sensitiveness is going to come up. And a lot of times that'll happen, especially I work from home and I do everything like on a computer, and sometimes you just get an email and it just, off you go, you know? Like, you get an email, somebody words something I don't like, and I can't say anything back, but even in my own house, I could get so wound up that when my wife comes walking in the door, I'm ready to explode. Like, there's a gas leak just waiting for a spark, you know, when she comes in. And it's like, while the drinking's gone, that's the behavior that was there when I was drinking. So even without the drinking, that behavior can still be there, for sure. She can be walking into a freaking ambush, right, with a totally sober Justin, unless I'm doing this stuff, you know? Looking at myself and seeing, like, you know, that sometimes, they're going to be out of salt, dude. You know what I mean? They're going to be out of salt. People are going to cut you off. Somebody's going to write an email that's probably going to be worded in a way that maybe they could have worded it differently. But the effect of that on me isn't just felt by me. It's felt by everybody around me. Actually, more by them, you know? And then when I lose my temper with them, I also lose... Through another thing I've learned is that keeping my self-respect is important. And when I lash out at somebody that's close to me, or I snap at my wife, I get upset with myself because I'm also very sensitive, you know, as it says here. And then when I'm mad at myself, then I go into this isolation thing, you know, and this, where it's like, it's a truly, I mean, this whole thing, alcoholism and all the fun that comes with it, right? It's like, it's amazing, like, when they say insidious, right? That's what it is. It's like, because one thing feeds another thing, and feeds another thing, and it's like, but the only thing I've found in 40 years, or more than 40 years, 45 years, is that this process of having a power greater than me, that I ask for help, looking at myself and doing the steps of seeing my part in the things that have happened, and looking at my behavior every day, and looking at what I can do to try to bring something to the table. My sponsor says that all the time. It's such a great thing. What can I bring to the table? What can I bring to this thing? What can I do to make it better, instead of thinking about what does Justin get out of this? What do I need? I mean, I wish I wasn't. I wish it wasn't true. I wish I wasn't a selfish person by nature, but I am, and I have to work to not be selfish. So when they talk about the spirit of the universe and whatever this thing is that basically saves me from being me, I don't know what it is. I have no idea. But I know that for me it's very real, and I know that I learned it here. And I definitely know that the circumstances that made me willing, that beaten into reasonableness, while it seemed at the time like it was the worst thing in the world, it was the best thing that could ever happen to me. And so did, coming here and meeting all of you guys and listening to what you had to say. I mean, it changed everything for me. So I highly recommend, if you haven't done this work, I highly recommend it, because it's definitely saved my life and everybody around me, and the poor people at McDonald's too, everybody, right? But that's it. Thanks, Justin.